Assalamualaikum class. First of all, make it clear that your cameras should be on. If your cameras are not on, I have to remove you from the class, okay? Yes, who is Krutlan, kindly on your camera. Zainab Siddiqui, Zainab Naki, kindly turn on your camera. Yes, Zainab Naki. Hibba, on your camera. Zainab Naki, okay. All of you must turn on your cameras, otherwise I have to remove you from the class as per instruction, okay? Okay girls, you can, this is your lecture 2. So first of all, mark your attendance in a chat box, okay? The contents of this lecture includes characteristics of sounds. uh, we will discuss the different characteristics of sounds on which sound is produced, right? The one versus loudness, second is pitch, third is quality, and fourth one is intensity. Afaf, Ariba, kindly turn on your cameras. Yes, Afaf. Otherwise, leave my class. Ariba, you also. Okay, so the learning outcome for this lecture includes, after studying these topics, you will be able to define the drum pitch, loudness, and quality of sound. You will be able to describe the effects of change in amplitude on loudness and effect of change in frequency on pitch of sound. Then you have to able that what is intensity and state its system international units. Okay. So first of all, we will take start from characteristics of sounds. Sounds of different objects can be distinguished on the basis of different characteristics as described below. So if you see that animals, they have different sounds, human beings, they have different sounds. In human beings, you can see that babies, girls, boys, they have a different sound. So basically these are the characteristics of sounds. Non-living objects, when they vibrate on its surface, they produce a different sounds. Animals, they produce a different sounds. Birds, they produce a different sounds. So basically these are the characteristics of sounds on which will we distinguish, we differentiate the sounds from one sounds to other sounds, right? The first main characteristic is loudness. So what is loudness? Let's say if there are two students here in the class, one is talking very low and other voice is very high. So we can say that the girl whose voice is high, we can say that she has a characteristics of loudness, right? So loudness is a characteristics of sound by which loud and faint sound can be distinguished. All of you are familiar with the loud sound. So a faint sound is a quieter sound, which is a very low sound. So if you see a figure 11.7, there are this is a sound loud and this is a quiet wave, right? So this is basically a first of all, you must know what is a wave. See? So girls, this is a wave. This is an axis, and this is a one wave, right? So you must know this is a wave. Here the wave is like this. This is a wave, right? This is a wave. So this end is crust and this end is known as draft, right? And this maximum height is known as amplitude, and this is also the maximum height of draft. So this is also an amplitude, right? Here the amplitude is positive and here the amplitude is negative because you will draw this wave on the x-axis, right? So this is a wave. This is a amplitude. Amplitude is the maximum height of a wave, and this is also the maximum height but in the negative axis, right? So now you see that the amplitude, this is a large amplitude. If you see that this is the maximum, and this the value of this amplitude is maximum, and you see this is the low amplitude. So when you have a small amplitude, it's mean the voice is quiet, or it can be a faint sound. But if you speak louder, the amplitude that is produced must be a large. So loudness is basically a characteristics by which you can differentiate a sound loud and a faint sound, right? When we talk to our friends, our voice is low, means our voice is like this, that we can the only friends can hear their voices, so it's a quiet sound, it's a faint sound. But when we address a public gathering, our voice is loud. Obviously we are using a speaker, and we have and our voice amplitude will be become very large. So when the amplitude will be greater, the loudness is produced, and our voice is a loud. So loudness of a sound depends upon number of factors. Some of them are discussed below: amplitude of vibrating body, area of vibrating body, distance from the vibrating body. So amplitude of vibrating body is the example is given that, let's say that if you are speaking on a mic, the amplitude will be very large. When your amplitude is large, the maximum so the maximum voice can be heard. Similarly, if you are talking to your friend, you are your voice is low, so the amplitude will be small. This amplitude is small as compared to this. Let's say its value is if you see this, let's say in large amplitude the value is 5, and you can say that in small amplitude the value can be 2.5 meter, right? So so the amplitude of a vibrating body depends upon how whether the amplitude is large or small. If we have a large amplitude, the voice must be loud. If we have a small amplitude, the voice must be quiet, or it can be faint. Then area of a vibrating body. So the loudness can also depend upon the area of a vibrating body. Let's say if you have two drums, beating drums, one area is like this, and other is like this. If you beat this on this surface, anything, right? Just if you just strike any spoon or any stick on this surface, the voice will be low, because this surface has small area, right? But if you beat any stick on this surface, or on this drum, the voice will be louder, because the area is quite larger. So it's mean the loudness depend upon the area of a vibrating body. If we have a large surface area, the loudness, we hear a more loud sound. But if we have a small surface area, the loudness will be low, means we will hear the low sound, right? The third factor is distance from the vibrating body. So let's say if there is a mic. Now, if you are very close to this mic, when someone is speaking from there, you can hear a sound very loud. But as you move toward here, let's say you will move at this point, what will be happen? The voice will become low, right? As you increase the distance, the sound will be become low. But as you near to the person who is speaking, the sound will be a loud sound. Similarly, as you increase the distance, the sound will be start decreasing. So these are the three factors on which the sound loudness depends. These three factors can be amplitude of the vibrating body. If the amplitude is large, loud sound will be produced. If the amplitude is small, the quiet sound will be produced. Then it depends upon the area of a vibrating body. A large area will produce loud sound, small area will be produce low sound. And distance from vibrating bodies, if you are very near to the vibrating body, you will hear the loud sound. But if you increase the distance from the vibrating body, the sound will be low. So these are the characteristics of loud. Yes, girls, do you have any confusion in this? If you can ask me now.
Ma'am, I did not understand amplitude.
Amplitude is you see this wave where I place this mouse. this purple color lines, this wave, yes beta, you are seeing this wave.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so this is the maximum height of this wave, this point. Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Where I put the red dot, this is the maximum height. So this is the amplitude. Amplitude is basically the maximum height of the wave, right?
Okay.
Now you see that this is a small amplitude as compared to the above wave, right? This amplitude is small, right? It's mean it is a minimum height as compared to the upper one, right? So here here the amplitude is small as compared to this wave, right? So this is the
Yes.
amplitude. Amplitude is basically the maximum height of the wave. This is a positive. This is the positive amplitude. This is the negative amplitude because it's present on the negative axis. This is the positive amplitude and this is the negative. So amplitude is basically the height of the uh, wave. Okay.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Welcome. Now this next characteristics is a pitch. Pitch is the characteristic of a sound by which we can distinguish between a shrill and a grave sound. Do you know what is shrill and a grave sound? So girls, shrill sound is basically a thin sound. You can note this point in your book as well. Okay, shrill sound is a thin sound, right? So when a shrill sound is produced, its frequency will be high, right? And the examples of shrill sound can be sound of women, birds, and cat. Girls, you can write these examples or points in your book as well. Okay, shrill sound is a thin sound, and in case of a shrill sound, the frequency will be very high, right? And the third and examples can be voice of woman, cat, and bird, right? So the other sound is a grave sound. What is a grave sound? Grave sound is a thick sound, and whenever you have a thick sound, the frequency will be low. So what is high frequency and what is low frequency? Again, you can see that from the figure. The amplitude is low, the frequency will be low. When the amplitude is high, there will be a high frequency, right? And it's also matter कि आप यहाँ, you can see over here that there's a larger distance. When you have a larger distance, and here the distance is a small, it's mean it has a high frequency, right? So grave sound is basically a thick sound, and in a grave sound the frequency is low. So can you give me the example of a grave sound as compared to a shrill sound? Yes, girls. Sounds of man, sounds of dog, and sounds of frogs. They are a thick sounds, right? So these are the examples of a grave sound. Shrill sounds can be a sounds of woman. Grave sound can be a sound of a man, right? Shrill sound can be a sound of a cat or a bird. Grave sound can be a sound of a dog or a frog because they are thick sounds, right? So this is known as a pitch. It depends upon the frequency, and if we see the loudness depends upon the amplitude, but pitch depends upon the frequency. At higher pitch means a higher frequency. If you have a higher pitch, it's mean the frequency must be higher, and if you have a lower pitch, then frequency must be low, right? And obviously in case of low pitch, the amplitude must be low, and in case of high pitch, the amplitude must be high, right? So as shown in figure 11.8, variation of pitch with frequency. So low pitch shows a low frequency and high pitch shows a high frequency. Is there any confusion, girls? You can ask me now. So it's clear to you, right? So the third characteristics of sound is a quality. So do you have an idea what is quality of a sound? Like see if the if if Sarah is talking and Hiba is talking, right? You can differentiate in their sounds. This is the quality, right? If there are two instruments they are playing in one room, one is a piano and other is a guitar, you know the sound of a piano and you know the sound of a guitar, so it is a quality. So the characteristics of a sound by which we can distinguish between two sounds of same loudness and pitch is called quality. But there are two factors that must be present in a quality. The loudness and the pitch must be same, right? So, let's say if there is a one, if in one room one piano is played and other guitar and guitar is also playing in the same room, the uh, the loudness of guitar and piano must be same, and the pitch and both are playing with the same pitch. Like if they are if their pitch is low, the both have the low pitch, right? But even though if they have the same loudness and pitch, you can differentiate that what is which sound is of guitar and which sound is of piano. So this is known as a quality. While standing outside a room, we can distinguish between the notes of a piano and a flute being played inside the room. This is due to the difference in the quality of these notes. Quality is basically a difference in the sound, right? You're all familiar with the sounds of your friends. If one of your friend is talking and other friends also talking and they have the same loudness and pitch, but you can easily recognize this is the sound of this friend and this is the sound of this friend, right? So this is known as a quality. If you see, this is a turning fork. So here here if you see the amplitude and the pitch of the turning fork is same. Again, the fluid is playing. This is the wave of a fluid. The amplitude of fluid, amplitude of turning fork. Let's say the amplitude of turning fork is 5 and fluid is also 5. They are the same. Then clarinet is also a musical instrument, right? Again, its amplitude is same, its loudness is same, they are playing with the same frequency, they are playing with the same amplitude, they are playing with the same pitch. But you can differentiate, this is the sound of a turning fork, this is the sound of a fluid, this is a sound of a clarinet, right? Because these are the three different instruments. So this is known as a quality. Sound waves produced by a turning fork, a flute, and a clarinet are all at approximately the same frequency. Pressure is plotted vertically to the time, right? So girls, is there any confusion in this topic? Yes, girls, do you have any confusion in this topic? If you have, then you can ask me now. Okay, the next characteristics is intensity. Intensity is how much sound is produced in a maximum time. The sound waves transfer energy from the surrounding bodies to the listener. Obviously, as I'm speaking, you are listening to me. Uh, I'm when I'm speaking, my vocal cords they are vibrates. They are able me to speak, and when I'm speaking, these vibrations they are producing a sound waves, and these sound waves they are here by your ear, right? So in this wave, a sound travel, right? If I speak very loud, obviously you can hear me clearly. If I will speak in a low sound or low voice, it will be difficult for you to listen me, right? So this is the intensity. The intensity of a sound depends on the amplitude of a sound wave, and it's depend as amplitude mean if you speak loud, your amplitude will be greater. Amplitude is basically a maximum height of a wave. Sound energy passing per second through a unit area. Let's say if you have this uh, this medium and you are speaking like this. So if you're speaking, the waves are traveling from these part. The sound energy they are passing per second through a unit area held perpendicular to the direction of propagation of sound. So these are known as the intensity of sound. So intensity is a physical quantity. If I speak very with very loud voice, my intensity will be very high. So it's a physical quantity, and it can be accurately measured. The intensity of sound is weight per square meter. That is a watt per meter square. So this is the unit of intensity, right? So girls, do you have any confusion till here? Okay. So these are the factors that we'll discuss today. Now you have a self-assessment that are questions that are given in your book, and you have to do these questions in your notebook, right? So you can see these uh, question. The first question is, explain how sound is produced by a school bell, right? So when the hammer strikes armature of a school bell, it starts vibrating and hence produce a sound. So this is the answer, and you have to done this in your notebook. Then why are sound waves called mechanical waves? Mechanical waves need mediums. For mechanical waves are the longitudinal waves that we have discussed, right? So mechanical waves need medium for their propagation, since sound waves also need a medium for their propagation. So they are called a mechanical waves. Third question is, suppose you and your friends are on the moon. Will you be able to hear any sound produced by your friends? We will not be able to hear any sound produced by my friends while standing on the moon, because there is no medium present at the surface of moon for the propagation of sound. There is a vacuum, there is a no medium. So in at that place, we cannot hear any sound, right? So girls, you have to do all these questions in your notebook. Then you have a quick quiz. Why the voice of a woman is more shrill than that of man? Since the frequency of sound of woman is higher than that of man, so the voice of woman is more shrill than that of man. Obviously, um, uh, uh, woman sound is thin, and they have a very high frequency, and men sound is a thick sound, and they have a low frequency. Second question is, which property of loud sound waves determine its loudness and pitch? In case of loudness, it can be determined by the help of an amplitude of a vibrating body determine its loudness, and frequency of sounds determine its pitch. Okay. Third is, what would happen to the loudness of a sound with increase in its frequency? Since loudness does not depends on the frequency, loudness will remain unchanged. Okay. So loudness of sound depends only on the amplitude. It cannot depend upon the frequency. So it will be remain unchanged. Okay. Now there is a side information, that is, do you know frequency of a turning fork depends on the mass of its prongs, right? Frequency of a turning fork depends on the mass of its prongs. If you have a more mass, then the frequency will be more. The greater the mass, the lower the frequency of the vibration, which means the lower the pitch. Obviously, when the mass is greater, and you will start it to move, it will be move with very low frequency, because it will be the mass is heavier. But if the mass is lighter, you just strike it in only any surface, it will be moved with a very high frequency because of its lighter mass. So girls, do you have any confusion in here? If you have, then you can ask me. What is the necessary conditions for the productions of sound? The necessary conditions for the production of sound: the body should vibrate, there must be a medium for propagation of sound, right? 11.3 is, how can you prove the mechanical nature of sound by simple experiment? We have discussed the experiment of a bell jar. You have to write all this experiment in this case to explain the mechanical nature of a sound by a simple experiment, right? In which we discuss the medium. Then 11.4, these are your exercise questions. Okay, what do you understand by the longitudinal wave? Describe the longitudinal nature of a sound wave. Answer is longitudinal wave. The particles of a medium moves back and forth along the direction of propagation of waves. Means they are moving back and forth. They are moving parallel or anti-parallel, and their direction must be same in the direction in which the wave is moving, right? Then longitudinal nature of sound wave, then you have to write this regardless of source of sound wave, whether it is vibrating string on the vibrating tines of a turning fork. Sound waves travels through air are longitudinal waves, and essential characteristics of longitudinal waves that distinguish it from other types of waves is that particles of the medium moves in the direction parallel to the direction of energy transfer, since air molecules are moving in the direction that is parallel to the direction that the waves moves, right? The sound waves is referred to as a longitudinal wave. The result of such longitudinal vibration is the creation of compression and rarefaction within the air, right? So we have already discussed in the previous lecture. This is also this question. The last question is 11.8. On what factors does the loudness of sounds depends? We have discussed in this lecture. They depends on the three factors. One is amplitude of the vibrating body, other is area of the vibrating body, and third is distance of the vibrating body. But it should be clear that loudness also depends upon the physical condition of the ear of the listeners, right? A sound appears louder to the person with sensitive ears than to a man with a defective ears. If the person has a normal sensitive ears, he can hear the sound. But if some person he has a defective ears, he has some issues regarding his ears, so he cannot be hear the sound. And so it also depends on the physical conditions of listeners. Apart these, they have the three factors, right? So girls, do you have any confusion in these lectures? And first thing that you have to keep in mind that I will take your class in the next online I will take your test in the next online lecture, and hopefully the next week is a Eid holiday. Then after that you will be again an online lecture, so in this I will take your online test. Okay, so prepare it very well. If you have any confusion regarding this lecture, you can ask me now. Otherwise, I have to end the meeting.
Ma'am, will you post the questions as PDF?
I will post all this lecture on Google account, and you can just note these questions in your notebook. Okay, you can just take the print, or you can just do in your notebook with the help of a pen. Okay.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay. Any other question, girls? Otherwise, I have to end the meeting. Okay, girls. Take care and Allah Hafiz.